Welcome to The Boss Bar, brought to you by Boss Up Magazine. The Boss Bar is the official podcast for emerging entrepreneurs and successful business owners. Tune in each and every Thursday for an intimate conversation with the boss behind the business. Want to learn more about our guest? Simply go to bossupmag.org. I am your host, Destiny, and we have an amazing show lined up for you today. But first, a word from our sponsor. Hey Boss Bar family, I'm so excited for today's episode. Today we're talking to Woumn, who is an app engineer, and he specializes in creating dope technology for the culture. If you don't know, the song I have playing in the background is Drake, God's Plan. And I'm playing that because Kyle actually created an app called Drakestagram, where you can go and just type in a keyword or two and a song or lyrics will come up that correlate with the keywords that you put in. So if you have really cool pictures and you don't know what captions to put, I know a lot of people are really into using Drake lyrics for their captions on Instagram or whatever, you can just go to drakestagram.com, which Kyle created, and you will get your lyrics, your captions, whatever you want to put with your pictures. It's really cool. In addition to talking about where he got the idea to start Drakestagram in the first place, Kyle and I also talk about how he got involved in tech and the doors and opportunities that were open to him to get involved in the first place. And we also really dive deep into talking about the importance of representation of African Americans in the tech, science, and STEM fields where we don't normally see people of color involved in. Kyle also teaches people how to build their own mobile apps through his Idea to App Store Mobile Accelerator program. So stay tuned. The Boss Bar will be right back, and we'll get into the conversation with Kyle right after these messages. Hey bosses, are you interested in promoting your business on a global scale? Do you need help to formulate a strategic message for your clients? Would you like to possibly have your products and services showcased in print, digital, television, or perhaps even this podcast? If you answered yes to any of these questions, you should definitely consider advertising with Boss Up Magazine. Boss Up Magazine is the official place where bosses make power moves. We offer affordable solutions that empower businesses to level up by promoting their brand on a higher scale. Don't delay. Contact us now at info@bossupmag.org to make your boss move today. That's info@bossupmag.org. And now, back to the show. All right. Welcome to the Boss Bar Podcast, where we introduce you to the boss behind the business. Today on the show, we're talking to Woumn, who is an app engineer who specializes in creating dope technology for the culture. Kyle is originally an Atlanta native, but is currently based in the San Francisco Bay Area. Along with writing code and building apps like Drakestagram, he teaches people how to build mobile apps through his Idea to App Store Mobile Accelerator program. Kyle does this because he is a huge proponent for community and giving back, and he also has created an event company called Over the Top, where he is a co-founder and he creates over-the-top experiences in the San Francisco Bay Area. Welcome to the show, Kyle.
Thank you so much for having me. Super excited to be on the Boss Bar podcast, and super excited to chat with you, tell my story.
Yeah. So you're in Cali. They say it's always sunny in California. Oh, that's actually Philadelphia, but is it like warm there?
So I'm in the Bay Area. So the Bay Area, I know when people think about California, the first thing that comes to mind is like LA, exactly, LA, Hollywood. And so it's funny, I have friends that will come to the Bay, and they'll pack shorts and stuff like that. When they get here, they realize it's really cold. The Bay is actually pretty cold.
Okay.
It has this weird microclimate around like the Bay Area. So San Francisco is usually like in the 50s to 60 degrees. That's year round, and summer doesn't come until maybe around September. That's when it actually gets warm, like up to like 70. Yeah, it's really weird. But yeah, that's the Bay Area for you. So if you ever come out to San Francisco, make sure you bring a jacket.
Got it. Noted. So tell me more about yourself and your background. Like, I checked out Drakestagram, and I was totally amazed. Let's start with, so you're from Atlanta originally. What school did you go to, and kind of like what did you study that got you into like creating code and things like that?
Yeah, so like I'm originally from Decatur. It's like 20 minutes east of Atlanta. For all intents and purposes, I just say Atlanta. But yeah, like growing up, I was always interested in technology. I think it was more so like when like the iPod came out, I had to have one, and so I got an iPod. I was probably like in middle school, and of course you're not supposed to take them to school, but I took it to school anyway. But I was always very like. I was curious. I'm like, how does this device work? How am I able to play songs with it? And so I was really actually interested originally in like electronics. Okay. And so my family, they didn't really know much about engineering or anything like that, but they had heard about it. And so, you know, when you see like your child or someone that, you know, you have a vested interest in, when you see that they're interested in something, you try to like, you know, promote that and give them more things to feed on so they can like see if it's something they really want to do. And so my parents found this summer program at Georgia Tech. Well, first I did one at Spelman. I was like maybe in 6th grade when I did that at Spelman. It was like a week-long program. And what they do, it was like an electronics program. So we made a speaker out of like a styrofoam bowl and like copper wire. It was like really cool. And it was like I was able to see like black people, black women like in these fields, and it was like really inspiring. And so that's when I knew I wanted to do something in like the computer space. And then a few years later, there was this program at Georgia Tech. This is when I was in high school. So summer programs were a huge like role in me like pursuing technology. But I was in high school, and there was this program called the Summer Engineering Institute, and it was at Georgia Tech. And it was a 4-week program, and it was a residential program, so on campus. And so they have about maybe like 20 to 30 underrepresented minorities there in this program, and they exposed us to all disciplines of engineering. So we learned about chemical engineering, electrical engineering, and computer science. And I always like see on TV, you always have like the computer hackers and like people coding. I'm like, that's cool. That's what I want to do. And so in my free time, like after that summer, I was looking at YouTube videos, and there's this guy named The New Boston, and I was trying to teach myself C++, and I was just following along with his YouTube videos, and I was like, this is really cool. And I wanted to go to Georgia Tech, and I always thought of it as my reach school. Like Georgia Tech is a really good school, has like a top 5 computer science program, but it was like my reach school. I didn't think I was good enough to get in, and even after doing all these programs and stuff like that, but you know, I just like, hey, let's try this out. So I applied, I got into Georgia Tech, and I was originally going to study computer engineering. And computer engineering is more so the hardware side of computers, so like the processor, the circuit board, and all that. And once I got into the computer engineering program at Georgia Tech, I realized it was more so electrical engineering focused. So it was like a lot of physics, and I don't know, that just wasn't me. And I had a friend that interned at Google after our freshman year, and I was like, you know, that's what I want to do. And so I ended up switching my major to computer science. And after that, it was a wrap. And I was like, this is really cool. It's cool how you all you need is a computer, and you can literally bring your ideas that you have in your head to life, like something like a Drakestagram, right? Silly idea, but a lot of people actually like found it useful. So I'm like, the iteration cycle when like developing something is really cool, and that you can just bring those ideas to life.
So what would you say is the difference between a computer science degree and the first one that you started with? Because what was the first one you said?
Computer engineering.
Yeah, what's the difference between the two?
Yeah, so the computer engineering degree focused more so on the hardware aspect of computers. So it's more low level, talking about, you know, how can we make chips smaller. Like it has some coding in it. Okay. Like they still code. Computer engineers, they still code. But you would find more of like the software, like when you're building like mobile apps, web apps, or like working with databases. That's more so on the computer science end of things.
Okay. So it's more coding that you do.
Exactly, more coding, and I was interested in more coding. I thought I cared about the hardware stuff, but the coding was more exciting to me.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about your Idea to App Mobile Accelerator program. What exactly do you do with that?
Yeah, so the Mobile App Accelerator program, my Idea to App Store program, essentially what it is it helps people who either come from a coding background or a non-coding background, but they want to be able to build an app. And what I've found is that traditionally in school, that people, at least from my experience in school, is like you learn the basics of programming, but you don't learn like specifically like mobile app development. Like their idea is to give you the tools so that you can learn any language or any like framework that you want. And so I was always interested in building mobile apps. And so I was working on an app a couple of years ago. It was a Greek app to connect people in Black Greek organizations. And I'm a member of Phi Beta Sigma fraternity. So I thought it was a cool idea. And so I started working on that app. It's actually in the App Store now. But since then, I've stopped working on it. But I was like, that was a really cool project. And I was just kind of like learning as I went. And so I did that. And then I started working on Drakestagram. I did that in like a week over like the holiday break last year. And at the end of 2018. And a lot of people started reaching out to me, and they saw that I was building apps. And a lot of people were asking me, how do you build an app? And it was a common question that I was getting all the time. And so I figured, I was like, okay, what if I just taught people how to build an app?
And they say,
baby. Exactly.
I'm not mad at you.
And they say you never really know something until you can teach it to people.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay. So I started the program, and essentially what it is, it goes from an idea to an app. And so the idea is to do this in about 3 months. And so in doing this, we go through 5 different steps. So the first step is market research, and that's where you're understanding who your customer is. You want to build an app. You want to know who your customer is. Like where can I find your customer, right? And then along with that, like what features do they want? And so we built we list out the features that would be in what we call a minimum viable product, or MVP for short. And that's just the minimum amount of features that you need like for this app to work.
Okay.
So think about Instagram 10 years ago, right? Without the stories, it was just literally pictures and filters, right? So that would be like MVP, if you so to speak. So we do that in the first step.
Okay.
And then the second step is designing your app. So I'm sure you've downloaded some apps before that have looked hideous, and like first impressions are really big. And so the second step is pretty much taking those features that we talked about in the first step, and then creating what we call mocks or wireframes of your app. So the visuals and like how it's going to look. And so with that, without even writing, designing your app. And so without any code, you can show it to someone, and you can say, oh, like, is this something you would use, right? And so that is. So you just like, it's like a prototype. So there's no code, it's not functional, but you can like, click a button and it'll take you to a new screen. So it's very low effort, but it allows you to get an understanding like, is this something that I should start coding? Because once you start coding, it's like you're already invested, and it's the worst when you like start coding and building something and you realize that, oh, this isn't something that people want. But it's all iteration and learning.
Okay.
So that was the second step, designing your app. And then the third step is creating your data model. And so oftentimes when it comes to apps, there's sometimes it gets data from external sources, and oftentimes a lot of the data is given by the user. For example, Instagram. I use Instagram a lot because I feel like everyone uses Instagram and everyone can relate to Instagram. Yeah. And so when it comes to Instagram, a lot of the data that you see on Instagram is user-generated. So, like, the photos that you post, the comments, all that is coming from the users. So we talk about where your data is going to come from and how we should structure that. So that's what the third step is. And then the fourth step is implementation. And that's where we get our hands dirty and actually start coding. And so this is tailored to someone who has never coded before, or even if you have coded before. So we're starting from ground zero. Everyone starts from ground zero. And so I teach the basics of JavaScript, which is people mainly know it as a as a language to build websites, but there's this framework called React Native, which uses JavaScript. And so after we learn the basics, I teach React Native, and React Native allows people to build mobile apps, and it allows them to build cross-platform mobile apps. And when I say cross-platform, it allows you to build it for Android and iOS using, you write the code once, and you're able to deploy to Android and iOS. So that's a really cool thing about React Native as opposed to if you were to do Swift, which is the language that people use for building iOS apps. If you were to do that, you have to write a whole other app using Java to create an Android app. So React Native really makes it a lot easier to do both with less effort. So that's why I really like it, and that's why I teach that.
Okay.
And then the last step is submitting your app to the App Store. So Apple has very strict criteria on what can and can't be submitted, especially like say you're working with a social network. You have to have things in place that, people can mark as spam, they can block users.
Right.
So Apple's very particular about that, which is a good thing. So I just talk about, teach my students how to get their app successfully submitted. Like the Kemet app, the Greek app, it took me about 4 times to get that actually accepted by Apple. They kept rejecting it for privacy reasons, or I needed to have a way to block people. So those are the 5 steps though that I go through in my program and teach people how to build apps.
That sounds really cool. I know a lot of people they I actually really like the name that you have, Idea to App, because it's literally the process that people go through. They have this idea and they want to make it so that it can be accessible to everyone. A lot of people I know lately, they have magazines or they have networks or things, and they want to be able to show their network to everyone and make things accessible. And I had a couple of conversations with people that want to start an app, and they've tried it. One person I know for sure, she's on her way to do it, but I think it's really cool what you do to coach people along the way, because I think it is a difficult thing if you've never had experience with that, or if the language of the computer is not your thing. I think what you do is really, really cool. Question.
Thank you.
So where did you come up with the idea for Drakestagram? I should have asked you this in the beginning, actually, but tell me
no worries.
you did that. Yeah.
So I'm a huge Drake fan. Sometimes I'm a little ashamed to say that, but I'm a huge Drake fan. Even I know people say, Drake's corny, Drake's this, Drake's that, whatever. But yeah, I like Drake a lot. And so on a lot of my Instagram photos, as for captions, I would use Drake lyrics. And I know a couple other people would do that too, like Odell Beckham Jr., the wide receiver, that plays for the Browns now. He uses Drake captions Drake lyrics as captions all the time. A lot of people do it. And so I was just and oftentimes people struggle when it comes to coming up with captions. They're like, what should I caption? I do photography on the side. And so I've taken so many great pictures of my friends, but they never post them because they're like, I don't have a caption. I'm just like, okay. And so I was in Vancouver, and back in November. It's funny, Drake was actually in Vancouver at the same time, and I saw him when I was in Oakland, the week before his concert. I didn't even know he was going to be in Vancouver, but that was my first time to Canada. I saw he was there, and I was like, what if I ran into Drake? Spoiler alert, I didn't run into Drake.
Okay, I was like, wait.
I had this idea, though, and I was like, what if I created a app, a web app, that pretty much allows people to put in what their picture's about, right? So what the Bible your photo is. So let's say you're talking about Lamborghini or something like that, and you're like, okay, what should I caption this picture with me behind this Lamborghini I just rented for the day because I don't own it. So then I was like, okay, so if someone typed in the word Lamborghini, I want to pretty much scan through all the Drake lyrics that he's ever said and pull out the lyrics that say Lamborghini in it. And so I was like, okay, this is a silly idea, and I didn't think people would actually adopt it. I knew it was something that I would use personally, but I was like, it's worth a shot. I have nothing to lose here. So I did it. I posted it on my Instagram, and it went viral. My friends shared it, and I got the coverage from Afrotech, and I have over 12,000 organic searches, no paid advertisement on Instagram, 12,000 searches since I launched it in January. And so it was kind of one of those things I just did.
That's
and
really dope.
I didn't forget about it, and I know people you should do Beyonce, Cardi B, but I didn't want to overdo it and run the idea to the ground. So I was like, I'm just gonna stick with Drake for now. But it was just a cool hobby project, and I was like, let's do it.
So did you have to search the lyrics and load them in yourself, or how exactly did that work?
Great question. So there's this API, and what API stands for, it stands for Application Programmable Interface. But just think, when I say API, just think of a service, okay? So forget about all the technical details. So there's a service that allows you to search lyrics by artists, and that gives you those results back. But that service is for Music Match, and it was $1,000 a month to do this. And I'm like, no, this is just a hobby project. I'm like, I'm not going to put that much money into this. This is just something for fun. And so I first started off trying to do like a free trial, and they only give you so many searches per day. And it just wasn't working out, and it wasn't scalable. And so I was like, and I had already launched it with that service too, just using the free trial of it. And they had a lot of bugs. People were saying it's not working for them. I'm like, man, I already put this out here, so I have to like fix it and make it work. And so this is where I had to put on my innovation hat, right? And so, are you familiar with the website Genius, or formerly known as Rap Genius?
Yep.
Yeah. So Genius has lyrics to pretty much every song you can think of on the internet. And so what I did, I wanted to see if Genius had a service or an API for me to actually connect to get the lyrics. And Genius does have an API, but they don't have an API that allows you to get the lyrics. And I think it's because of the licensing. It's like who owns the lyrics, so they're legally not able to do that. So I was like, okay, how can I innovate and actually get these lyrics? So what I did, I put my computer science expertise to the test, and I went on Genius's website, and I looked up Drake's, like, all of his songs. And what you can do is you can do something what they call inspect the network. So you ever like right click in like Google Chrome or something like that, you can like inspect elements, and you can see like the HTML and stuff like that. So there's this thing called network, and you can see all the requests to Genius's server that's happening. And so what I did, I inspected the network, and I was able to actually see what the call was to get all of Drake's lyrics. So I did that, and I scraped all of the song lyrics that Drake had from Genius, and I put them in a database of my own. And so now I don't have to use that external service anymore, the Music Match one, because it was like a free trial.
Okay, because you already have it.
Exactly. I literally took every single Drake song ever from Genius, and I put it into my own database. I'm using Amazon Web Services for that. And so pretty much every time someone makes a request, it just hits my database now, and it gets the lyrics. So I pretty much did it for free $99 when it would have costed me $1,000 a month. So it was a really cool project just to like. I learned so much doing that too.
I was gonna say, it sounds like it. Like you had to like put your thinking cap on.
I did, and like it was really cool, and especially like the reception that it got from like so many people. I'm still waiting on Drake to see it. I know he's gonna see it one day. I'm not tripping on it, you know. All in due time.
Yeah. So as you're talking, I mean, you can tell like you are really passionate about tech and about computers. And I want to know, what are some barriers that you think kind of hold us as Black people from getting involved in tech? Because you don't really see a lot of that, and a lot of people say that that's really a big emerging field. It's basically the wave of the future. So what are some hurdles that you think that we face?
It is definitely a wave of the future. And I think one of the biggest hurdles is starting, right? And knowing where to start. And I think that's the thing. I was privileged to be able to go to these different programs, and I recognize that not everyone has those opportunities. But I find that people are afraid to start, and there's so many free resources out there to just get your hands dirty. So there's one called codecademy.com, codecademy.com, and they have different tutorials, like how to build a website, how to learn Python, which is a programming language, how to learn JavaScript. I believe they have JavaScript on there. So there's that. There's also a lot of YouTube videos, but I think it's just more so where to start. And I know oftentimes people, especially, I guess, millennials, quote unquote, I'm a millennial, but especially millennials, I guess, it's the idea of instant gratification. So it's like you start and it's not working out for you. It's easy to just get frustrated and give up. But when I started doing this,
throw the computer out the window.
Exactly. I was trash at coding when I first started. There were so many different job interviews that I had, for internships and stuff, that I got rejected from. And a lot of people don't see that, So I do want to share that. A lot of people don't see that, but it's just keep doing it, keep learning and growing. And I think the biggest thing for me is like working on projects. That's how I was able to get better, working on projects that align with my passion. Like I mentioned, like creating dope technology for the culture. I love culture. I love music. So I was like, how can I, intersect the two? And like that's how like ideas like Drakestagram came out. And so I know people, for example, that build like sneaker bots to cop the latest like Jordans or something like that. It's like if you're passionate about technology like sneakers, you could build something like that. There are people out here that have businesses like creating technology at the intersection of whatever their passion is. But I think the biggest thing is, one, knowing where to start, and two, exposure. Like you don't really see too many people like us, so that's why it's really important for us to be that voice.
Yeah, absolutely.
For example, have you ever seen the movie The Internship?
I think I know what you're talking about. I did not see it though, but I think I know what you're talking about.
I just saw it for the first time a couple of days ago, and long story short, it's a movie about these two guys. They get an internship at Google, and they're working at Google as like software engineering interns. But what I noticed in this movie, I was like, all the software engineers were either Asian or white. There were not, there were no black people, and I was like, wow, this is like a huge part, because if people can't see themselves like in these roles, they're like, they're like, it's like they automatically type themselves out. So I think just being out here and like people seeing us is one big step altogether.
Yeah, I definitely think representation really does matter, whether it's in the tech field, the entertainment industry, politics, whatever. When people see, just thinking about be it from kids, like when kids see people that look like them doing things that they want to do or things they may have not ever thought of doing, but they see somebody that looks like them doing it or in that position or role, they're like, okay, well, maybe I'll give it a try too. And then it moves on to them having those experiences or even wanting to seek them out, those camps and things. But I think it first starts with them seeing somebody that actually doing it or somebody that they look up to. Having that connection is really, really important. We're going to go to commercial break now, but when we come back, we're going to talk some inspirational things with Kyle Woumn when we come back right after these few messages. It's time for the Boss Move of the Week. This is the part of the show where we uplift the work of emerging entrepreneurs and those giving back to the community. Today's Boss Move of the Week goes to Davia Green from Detroit. Davia is putting on a fashion show called the Dreamers and Believers Fashion Show this Saturday, May 25th at Durfee Innovation Society. I'm really proud of Davia because when I talked to her and asked her about why Dreamers and Believers for a name, she said that everybody has a dream, but not everybody feels confident enough to step into their dream and believe in their dream. It's the belief that you put into your dream that helps you put action behind it. So she told me that, when it comes to casting and designers, many of her designers, this is their first time being in a fashion show. Many of her models, this is their first time, and it's given them so much confidence. So I just want to encourage you guys all to make sure you get out there this Saturday, May 25th. Doors open at 6 p.m. Get on out there to the Dreamers and Believers Fashion Show and support our Boss of the Week, Davia Green. If you have somebody that you like to nominate for Boss Move of the Week, send me an email at bossbarpod@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you and feature them on the show. And now, let's get into the conversation between the bosses. And we're back. We've been talking to Kyle Woumn about how he creates dope technology for the culture. Hey, Kyle, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, and yourself?
Good. So I want to kind of get into the inspirational side of things. Like I said before, you don't see a lot of black people that look like us involved in the tech field. Now, I know you mentioned that, you were interested in it because of the iPhone, but what was it that made you keep going in that field? Like, what gave you that motivation to keep pushing? Was it a person? Was it the classes that you went to at Spelman? What was it that kind of gave you that push?
Yeah, I think for me it was definitely the summer programs that gave me that push, and at Georgia Tech, like the Summer Engineering Institute that I did in high school. The people that ran that program, they were very supportive. And like I mentioned, like Georgia Tech, I thought it was my reach school, right? The school that I didn't think I could get into, but I'm going to apply to anyway. And so they encouraged me, and like the counselors that were there that summer, they were actually Georgia Tech students, and they were studying it. And one of my really good friends, Amy, she was studying computer science, and she was one of the counselors at the time. And so I knew she was studying computer science, and when it was time for me to actually apply to go to college, I reached out to her. And I had met her 2 years before, and I was like, hey, Amy, like, I'm thinking about going to Georgia Tech, but I don't think I'm going to be able to get in. I don't even think I'll be able to do well. And she was like, no, you can definitely do this. She's like, if I can do this, you can do this. And so when I got to Georgia Tech, she was a senior, and, like, throughout that first year, like, seeing her be successful, seeing her be able to, like, intern. She interned at Qualcomm, worked there full-time after she graduated. Now she's, like, in an MBA program at Harvard Business School. So
wow.
being able to see successful people inspired me. And I'm like, okay. And, like, being able to have those people as my mentors, mentorship, yeah, that's a huge thing, mentorship. And I think the black community at Georgia Tech does a really good job at that. But it's like, even if you're not at Georgia Tech, I definitely say seek out mentors or someone that's doing something in your space or the space that you aspire to be in, and just pick their brains and, like, follow what they do, because there's this saying, like, success leaves footprints, right? And so it's like you see someone else is doing something, like literally copy paste what they're doing, because that's how they got there. So I totally recommend seeking out mentors to help get started.
Yeah, I think mentors and coaching, kind of like what you do, is a really vital part of success in any field. I think sometimes a lot of people are scared to ask those questions, but honestly, they always say there's no bad questions, really. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's no harm in asking a question and trying to get more information. It's only going to give you more information on the topic. So I want to ask you, can you tell me about a time when you failed?
Oh, definitely, yeah. There's plenty of those times. And like growing up, I was like a really good student. I was like a straight A student. But when I got to college, I did well like my first year. I did well overall, but there was like this one class. It was an electrical and computer engineering class. This is when I was still computer engineering. And it's like I tried so hard in this class, and it just seemed like every time we had a test, I would fail it. And so I ended up getting a D in this class.
Oh, yikes.
And so it was a major specific class too, that you need. So you need a C or better to actually move on. You know that saying, C's get degrees. But I actually had a D in that class. And so I would have had to retake it, but I ended up switching my major anyway to computer science, so I didn't have to take it. But so that was one aspect of me failing, but then another was trying to secure a software engineering internship. So I interned at General Electric, but it wasn't a software engineering internship. It was in like Salem, Virginia. But I was like, the next internship I get, I want it to be a software engineering internship in Silicon Valley in the Bay Area. And so I interviewed at so many different companies, Google. What's another company? Palantir. I had so many different tech interviews. And tech interviews are hit or miss. It's like you could be a really good interviewer but not a good engineer, or you could be a bad interviewer but a great engineer. It really depends on who you get as your interviewer as well. It's like a game. It's like you just have to know how to play the game. And so I was learning at the time. Like I mentioned, my friend had interviewed at Google. And so and there's like this statistic. I believe it says like the average person that works at Google has interviewed there 3 times before they got the job.
Oh, wow.
Don't quote me on the numbers, but it's some kind of statistic like that. If it's not 3 times, it's at least twice. And so there were so many technical interviews that I like failed, and it was really crushing too when I would like not do well and not get the offers. And I vowed to myself, I'm like, I'm gonna get this, and like I used that failure as my fuel to like keep going. And then I ended up landing this summer internship at Twilio, which is a cloud communications company in San Francisco. So I was able to intern there twice and also work there full time. And so had I quit, you know, I would have I wouldn't be where I'm at today. And I learned so much through that. And there's this saying, like 5 feet away from gold. I'm not sure if you've ever read Think and Grow Rich. But there's this saying, like during the gold rush, the California gold rush in the 1800s, there was a guy that, you know, he purchased some land and he was seeking gold. He was like digging for gold and he didn't find it. So he ended up giving up and he sold it. And the person he sold it to found gold 5 feet away from where he stopped looking. So that's like just a quick testament to always like to never give up because you never know you never know how close to success you are.
Yeah, that's so true. So you talked about when you failed. Tell me about what has been your most proudest moment so far.
I think my most proud moment has probably been Drakestagram, to be honest, when it comes to building tech, because it's not just because it was like a cool thing to do and I got like, you know, a little attention off of it, but it's more so because I was able to like inspire people, because people see, I think there's this perception that you have to be a nerd to be like a software engineer. I guess you could say I'm a nerd, but I would say I'm relatable though. I'm relatable and like you know, it's like music, pop culture, and all that stuff. But so I think there's like that stigma around it, and I was able to influence. And I have a little cousin. He's graduating high school in like tomorrow actually, and he's applying to colleges. And I was asking him what he wants to study, and he told me he wants to study computer science. And I was like, what makes you want to study that? And he's like, the Drakestagram thing, your Drakestagram app is what made me want to study it, because I see you can actually do cool stuff with like technology. And that like when I heard that, like I was like, wow. Like I don't need the fame or anything, but being able to change one person and inspire them to go on that path, like that was enough. That was all I needed. And so it was great. I'm actually going to his graduation. He lives in Chicago, so I'm going there tomorrow. So shout out to him.
Yeah, that's really dope. I think just being able to inspire others is a really key factor of being a boss. Somebody else seeing your light shine and like, hey, I want to do that too. You're doing it. You know, you made it cool. You made it relatable. You're doing what your mission is. Like you said, you wanted to create dope technology for the culture, and you've done just that. So that's really, really, really awesome. What type of advice would you give to someone that's interested in getting involved in tech or coding or software development, but, you know, they feel like it's nerdy. They feel like, oh, that's not where I really, like, they're scared kind of take that step. What would you kind of give them advice to do?
Yeah, the advice that I would give is, like, it's whatever you make it. So, you know, if you make it nerdy, then it's nerdy. But if you make it cool, it's cool. So I would definitely just at least say check it out. Like, try something. Like I mentioned, the Code Academy website. And for those people out there that are actually really serious about getting into software engineering, there are what they call boot camps out there. They're coding boot camps. So there's a lot of them. So there's like General Assembly. I know General Assembly is in a lot of big cities, but they also have it online as well. There's Flatiron School, and out in the Bay Area, there's something called Hack Reactor, which is a boot camp. And then there's one for women, specifically only for women, called Hack Bright Academy out here. So these boot camps are like pretty intensive. They're like 3-month-long boot camps. They're like Monday through Friday. I hear Hack Reactor is Monday through Saturday. So they're very intensive, and it's full time. And and you have to there's a tuition associated with it. Okay. But I know some boot camps, you know, to incentivize people to do it if they don't have the finances, they'll let you go. But once you get a job, then you just pay them back a percentage of your salary. And so pretty much that incentivizes them to help you get a job, you know. So it's like, you know, you're not going in this blind. And a lot of these boot camps have relationships with companies to get people in their pipeline. So I definitely suggest people, if you're serious about looking into boot camp, but if you just want to get your feet wet, I definitely suggest Code Academy or even like YouTube videos on coding, and just try building something that you want to build. And when you get stuck, like there's different communities out there. So there's I have a good friend named Marlon Avery, and he lives in Atlanta. He has a community called 100 Days of Code, where he's actually it's like a community of new developers, and they're learning and growing together. So definitely just getting in those spaces and getting immersed is the best thing we can do.
Okay. Now, speaking of those classes, that kind of really flows into my next question. What has been the best investment that you've made in yourself thus far? Like, was it classes? Was it getting a mentor? Did you go to, like, conferences? What would you say has been the best investment that you've made?
I would definitely say the best investment I've made has been like conferences and just networking in general. I've gotten so many like opportunities just through my network alone. And so out here in the Bay Area, I'm a part of an organization called Dev Color, and it's for people that are software engineers. And essentially what it is, they put us in what we call squads. So it's like a group of 4 to 5 people or 4 to 7 people, and we meet on a monthly basis, and we talk about, our careers. And so, and it's a pretty diverse group in terms of, so everyone's comes from African ancestry for the most part, but when I mean like diverse, it's like you may have entrepreneurs, you may have senior software engineers, you may have more junior software engineers. So, and in this, like, it's a great knowledge share. You learn a lot about people. You learn a lot about like what people have done when they've been in similar situations. And you can also kind of bond over the fact that you're, Black in tech, which is a predominantly non-Black space, right? And so I would definitely say that my network and like getting in these organizations and just like learning from other people and seeing what they do has been my biggest investment. And not being scared to ask questions. I know sometimes you can get a big ego. Like I myself am guilty of it, and I'm scared to ask questions, or I don't want to seem like a quote unquote groupie, but just ask the question. Like, that's the only way you can grow and learn is by like, we're in this together. So
yeah, absolutely.
Everybody can eat.
Exactly. It's enough out here for everybody, for real. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
So in the next 5 years, so right now, I do Idea to App Store. I work a 9 to 5 at Twilio as a software engineer. Idea to App Store is what I do pretty much after hours, but I do eventually want to transition into being like a full-time entrepreneur, pursuing that. And it's like I enjoy my current job, but I just see that there's so much more for me out there, if that makes sense. Like I want to be able to like create my own products from like my own mind, and just be able to not control, but more so like bring my visions to life, and be a boss. Right?
Yeah.
And not even like be a boss, but more so be able to lead other people with one shared vision.
But it sounds like you kind of already are doing that, though.
Yeah, I am. It's just like, making that jump, right? So that can be scary.
It's just taking it to the next level.
Exactly.
Yeah. What would you say to somebody who they have a dream that they want to follow, but like you just mentioned, it's scary. They're scared to take that next step and to step into their dreams. What would you say to them to get them to do that, to jump into that next level?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and even for me, that inspires me to like go after it every day is regret, right? It's like I don't want to be however old, tomorrow's not a promise, but I don't want to be however old and say, man, like I wish I had done that and I didn't do it, because it's just like at the end of the day, nobody's gonna talk about how much money you had, or it's like the fulfillment will come from the impact that you made. And so if it's something that you want to pursue, just think about that. Like, is this something that you're gonna regret not doing? And especially like while you're young, like I'm 24 right now, so I'm young. I have nothing to really lose. So I'm like, let's do this. Like, let's go after it. But I definitely say you can't fail. It's like you can fail, but there's the Thomas Edison quote. He said he just found 1,000 ways that didn't work, or was it Benjamin Franklin? It was one of those. But yeah, it just was like learning from failure and not being afraid to fail.
Yeah, my guest last week, Bunny the blogger, she was just, I asked her what motivates her, and she said that she was motivated by her failures because she knows that every time she fails is another chance for her to try again and get it right the next time, or she just knows, like, okay, I messed up this time, but next time this is what I'm going to fix and make sure that I get it right. And she knows that that's coming, so instead of being like
Exactly.
letting that failure like completely encapsulate her and like bring her down, she uses it as a motivation.
Exactly. And it's like when sharing your story too, it's like when you tell a story and you get something right on the first time, that's not an interesting story, but the best stories are the ones, that have adversity in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it really just makes for a good story, like Oprah Winfrey, literally all the greats, there's some kind of adversity there. So just embracing the adversity.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're going to go to commercial break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about boss tools, and then we're going to get to your listener letters. Stay tuned. The Boss Bar Podcast will be right back after these few messages. If networking with people headed to the top is something you enjoy, the Cupcakes and Conversation Tour is an event you do not want to miss. Meet us in Wilmington, Delaware on July 20th, where we will be sharing the ins and outs of being a boss with people making major boss moves. This event will have cupcakes, mimosas, guest speakers, and more. Go to www.bossupmag.org to get your tickets today. That's www.bossupmag.org. All right, we are back with the Boss Bar Podcast. We're talking to Kyle Woumn from the Idea to App Mobile Accelerator Program about how he became a boss in the tech industry. Right now, we're going to go into the Boss Tools segment. It's the part of the show where we share helpful tips and tools that you can use in your business. If you have a tool that you think our listeners would benefit from, send us a message at bossbarpod@gmail.com. So today I am reusing a boss tool that I shared in one of my previous shows. It's called MailChimp. And the reason that I'm sharing this tool is just a reminder to everyone out there with businesses and just out on social media, and I even have to tell myself this, you do not own your Instagram followers, your Twitter followers, or your Facebook followers at all. If you, I remember Facebook and Instagram, both of them went down a couple weeks ago, and people were just freaking out.
Yeah.
But if you are updating your mailing list and keeping in track with, your own followers in your own way, it wouldn't be a problem to you. You know what I'm saying? So MailChimp is basically an online tool that makes email marketing simple yet effective. Like I said, a lot of people get confused. They think just because they have 100,000 followers on Instagram or Facebook that will automatically translate into sales and donations, and that's not the case at all. It could be sometimes if you happen to go viral, but it's not a good business tool. So I basically use it. I used it to set up a landing page for this podcast, and I was kind of able just to put it together very quickly. I would say I probably did it in 30 minutes, and it probably didn't even need to take that long. And there's so many different ways that you can customize it, and they have really cool ways that you can send out emails and stay in touch with your followers in that way. And it just helps to just collect my subscribers' email addresses. So if you guys are interested and you want to check it out, just go to MailChimp.com and you can get more information. What about you, Kyle?
Yeah, so one of my boss tools is Calendly, Calendly. And what Calendly is a way for people to schedule time with you, right? So say you have a business, you want to schedule a consultation with a client or a prospective client. So I use Calendly.com, and what they can do is they can literally see my calendar. Well, they can't see my calendar, but they can see my availability, and they can just go in and select a time and for an appointment. And so it makes my life so much easier. Before Calendly, what I was doing, especially when when I first started Idea the App Store, a lot of people reached out to me, and I was like, oh, what's your schedule like? And then I had to account for time zone differences. I'm like, oh, I'm Pacific time, you're Eastern. And so it was a huge mess. And so Calendly has made my life so much easier. So whenever, like, someone wants to have a conversation or something like that, I'll just send them my Calendly link. I'm like, hey, just take a look at my calendar and pick a time that works best for you. And then once they fill out the information, it schedules it for them. And then we have a meeting on the calendar. And so it's super easy. It saved my life a whole lot. It has made organizing my time a lot easier. So Calendly.com. And it can connect with, like, your Google Calendar if you use Google Calendar. And I think it also connects with, like, iCal as well. So so it'll look and see if you already have something on the calendar, and it'll just block those times out.
Oh, that's really helpful. Super helpful. Did you have a second one or just one?
Just Calendly, yeah.
Okay, cool. And then how do you spell that again?
Calendly.
Okay, cool. Yeah, y'all check that out. I think I'll do the same. I'm always, like, double booking myself with work and life, and it's just a whole lot. But
yeah.
We're going to go into the Ask a Boss segment. This is the part of the show where we read our listener letters live. If you have a question about any aspect of starting a business, being motivated, or you just want to say hello, shoot us an email at bossbarpod@gmail.com. So you got 3 questions today. The first one comes from one of our followers from Instagram, Kicking It with Key. And her name is Kiera. She's from Delaware, and she says, what was the thought or idea that got you to where you are now?
The thought or idea that got me here now is being able to, I think more so is, like, the vision of seeing, like, untapped potential, right? So it's like I know what I'm capable of, and we all have the capability of being great. And so it's just, like, unlocking that potential, because potential doesn't mean anything unless you act on it. So I think it was, like, me seeing that I can own my own tech company. I can do these things. And so just, like, pursuing it, just taking action. And action, it's a scary thing we mentioned earlier. It's a scary thing to do. But I think that's, like knowing what I could be and what I could create has been, like, the biggest single motivator for me to get where I am now.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. Your next question comes from another one of our followers, and he asks, where do you see the future of technology going in the next 10 years?
Well, in the next 10 years, I definitely see technology evolving a whole lot. I know you probably hear about all these companies trying to do autonomous vehicles or self-driving cars.
Yep.
So I definitely think that's definitely going to be a thing. I'm not sure how I feel about that personally. But the people that work at these companies, they say, you know, like, would you trust a computer or another human with your life, right? So, and I don't know how I feel about that, because, like, computers, like, I don't know. I'm conflicted, because, like, okay, if everyone has a self-driving car, then it could work. But if there's some self-driving cars and some humans, and, you know, there's human error. So I don't know, but I definitely see that, like, companies are funneling millions, multiple millions of dollars into these initiatives of self-driving cars. So I definitely see that as a thing in the next 10 years.
Do you think that they might, like, get more into, like, virtual reality?
Yeah, and I think virtual reality is something that's really untapped right now. Virtual reality and augmented reality. And I definitely see companies moving more in that space as well. Like, I remember, like, a couple of years ago at Coachella, there was, like, the hologram Tupac concert.
Yes. I forgot all about that.
Like,
they sure did, yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, that was really cool. So I definitely see more, like, innovation in that space.
That's really interesting to think about, like, just, like, because I know, like, how you just said, like, oh, a computer driving car sounds weird, but, I mean, think about, like, how Uber works. Like, people, when that first started, people were like, oh, I'm not getting in a car with nobody I don't know.
A stranger, yeah.
And now everybody's like, oh, yeah, my Uber's here. Like, you know, they said people put their kids in Ubers to go to school, so.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's questionable. But your last question is, what is the most difficult part about tech coaching?
I think the most difficult part about tech coaching is being able to break down a concept so that it's understandable, and being able to use like practical examples. So I try to I use technical vocabulary when I'm teaching, just so whenever like someone goes to another room and they hear someone using those words, they know what it is. But my goal isn't to just, spew out all these technical words. I want to be able to break it down. So, like, breaking down concepts so that it's, like, understandable and it relates to, like, my students' everyday life. I think that's the most difficult part. But it's, like, once I'm able to figure out what resonates with them and what makes sense is, like, super rewarding. And, like, my favorite part is, like, seeing it click. Like, when you see someone, like, pick up a concept and it just clicks, like, that's, like, my favorite part. So.
Yeah, when you see that light bulb go off above their head.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm sure that's like a really good feeling.
It is.
Well, it's just about time for us to wrap up the show. And I feel like I've already asked you this question in 3 different ways, but I'm just going to ask it again. What advice do you have for people who would like to follow in your footsteps and become the dope technology creator for the culture?
Yeah, for me, my advice to everyone out there is to, 1, bet on yourself, believe in yourself. Like every good thing that happens, it starts from within. So betting on yourself, and then 2 is getting started. That's honestly the hardest part. That's the question I get the most is how do I start? And so there's there's unlimited free resources on the internet. I mentioned codecademy.com. There's YouTube. If you just want to scratch the surface and see, definitely look into those resources. Okay. And then if you see this is something that you actually want to pursue, invest in it. Invest in taking an online course or something like that, or invest in doing a boot camp. But not being afraid to invest in yourself is the biggest advice that I would give.
Yeah, I think that's really, really important, is investing in yourself and figuring out, what are your goals, who are some key people that you need to get in contact with to help you to get to your goals.
Exactly.
So, final question. And I ask everybody this, and they always are like, "No, I'm not. I just feel bad answering this question. I don't feel like I'm a boss." But the question is, what makes you, Kyle, a boss?
I think what makes me a boss is a few things. I think 1 is the ability to innovate, right? So being able to have these creative ideas, but actually being able to execute them, that's 1 thing. But then 2, I think what makes me a boss is being able to empower others. So it's if I'm the only boss, if I'm the only person in my circle that's a boss, then I'm not really a boss. But if I'm able to empower people around me to pursue their goals and stuff, then I'm a boss. And I try to do that every day with everyone I come in contact with, and just empower them to be their best selves and let them know the sky's the limit. So those are 2 things that make me a boss.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Okay.
Thank you.
So tell us again, how can we get involved with your Mobile App Accelerator program and support you? Where can we find you online? How do we get to Drakestagram? Tell us all the deets. This is the part for you to plug yourself.
All right. So if you want to look for me, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Kyleculus. That's KYLECULUS. So it's like calculus, but Kyleculus. So that's where you can find me. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter with that. And I thought about changing that handle. I made it in high school, but I'm like, it's me now. It's funny. People actually see me in real life. They say, "What's up, Calculus?" So it's weird, but yeah. So follow me on Instagram and Twitter. I thought that was your last name
at first until I did some research, and I was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah. So that explains that. Yeah, so follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Calculus. And then if you're interested in my Idea to App Store program, go to www.idea and then the number 2 app.io. So that's www.idea, the number 2 app.io. And there is a form where you can fill out your information, tell me like why you're interested in building an app, and then I'll reach out to you shortly, and we can have a conversation and see like if it's a fit for you. And if you want some fire Instagram captions, be sure to go to www.drakestagram.com, DRAKESTAGRAM. So that's www.drakestagram.com. Search a keyword, something that fits the vibe of your photo, hit enter, and you get some lyrics that match that vibe. So super excited, and thank you so much for this opportunity to share my story and be on the Boss Bar podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on the show, Kyle. It's been really, really great. I actually do have an inner nerd, even though I didn't express it as much, but I really do. I am a secret techie girl at heart.
Nice.
At heart. It's very deep in my heart, but it's there. But thanks
Nice.
again for coming on the show, Kyle. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right, guys, we'll check you out next time on the Boss Bar Podcast. You've been listening to the Boss Bar Podcast, brought to you by Boss Up Magazine. Tune in each and every Thursday for an intimate conversation between emerging entrepreneurs and successful business owners. If you would like to have your business featured on the show or have a question you would like to ask the bosses, send us an email at bossbarpod@gmail.com. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week at the Boss Bar.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/.